you speak to your father? Because he spent my entire childhood convincing me I was adopted and worthless. Every family photo had me cropped out or I was mysteriously sick on picture day. Every Christmas morning, he'd give my siblings expensive gifts while telling me real children get presents, not strays we picked up. When I cried, he'd say, "Your real parents didn't want you. Why would we?" Mom would just look away and change the subject. He made me call him sir, while my siblings called him dad. I had to eat dinner after everyone else finished because family eats first. My siblings never questioned it. They got allowances, I got chores, they got birthday parties, I got a cupcake if I was lucky. Dad would tell extended family I was troubled, and that's why I seemed different. I believed every word. At school, I was too ashamed to invite friends over. How do you explain that your own father treats you like hired help? Teachers noticed I was withdrawn, but when they called home, Dad would charm them completely. "Oh, she's just shy." Adopted children sometimes struggle with attachment. The worst part was how systematic it was. He'd praise my siblings constantly, while finding fault in everything I did. "Why can't you be more like your brother?" became his daily mantra. I spent years thinking something was fundamentally wrong with me. He even had fake adoption papers. I found them in his desk when I was 12 looking for tape. They looked official to my young eyes, complete with forged signatures and a made-up agency name. When I asked Mom about them, she started crying and locked herself in the bathroom for an hour. At 16, I needed my birth certificate for a job application. Dad said I'd have to contact social services since I wasn't really family. But when I went to the courthouse myself, something didn't add up. The hospital listed on my birth certificate was the same one where Mom had my little brother. Same doctor too, same last name. When I asked the clerk about my adoption records, she looked confused and said, "Honey, there are no adoption records here." She pulled up the files on her computer. Not only was I not adopted, I was Dad's biological child, but my siblings, they were all from Mom's previous marriage. Dad had adopted them after marrying Mom. I was his only actual biological kid, and he'd spent 16 years convincing me I was the outsider. I sat in my car staring at that birth certificate for an hour. Everything clicked into place. Why I looked exactly like Dad, but my siblings didn't. Why Mom sometimes seemed guilty when Dad was particularly cruel. Why Grandma always slipped me extra money just because. Why Dad's sister would hug me extra tight and whisper, "You're so special," during family gatherings. When I confronted him with the birth certificate, his face went completely white. For the first time in my life, I saw fear in his eyes. He tried stammering excuses about protecting me from complicated family dynamics, but I cut him off. Turns out, after years of struggling with infertility, I was the miracle baby he'd always wanted. But when Mom's ex-husband died in a car accident and she suddenly gained full custody of her 3 kids, Dad panicked. He was so desperate to be their hero, to make them love him as their new father, that he made me the scapegoat. He thought making me feel unwanted would make them grateful for his love. He convinced them I was just some random kid Mom had adopted before meeting him. He rewrote our entire family history and even created those fake adoption papers to sell the lie. The irony? While he was rejecting his only biological child to win over his stepkids, those kids spent their teenage years telling friends they couldn't wait to turn 18 and never see him again. They never considered him their real father anyway. When I told my siblings the truth, they were horrified. My older brother said, "We always thought it was weird how mean he was to you, but we figured that's just how adopted kids got treated." My sister started crying, remembering all the times she'd gotten privileges I was denied. They'd spent years watching their stepfather emotionally abuse his own daughter and never questioned it because they believed his lies too. That was 5 years ago. I haven't spoken to him since. Mom finally left him last year after realizing she'd enabled the abuse of her own child. My siblings and I are rebuilding our relationship. But Dad? He lost the only family that was actually his. The fake adoption papers are still in his desk drawer. Mom found them when she was packing. Turns out he'd spent hours crafting an elaborate lie just to justify treating his own daughter like garbage.